Hey, what's up, everybody? Frederic Poag here. Why are you may have wondered, why are MAGA so hard to reach? Why are they so stuck in their ways of thinking? And why are they not open to other ways of thinking or even arguments? You may have been frustrated at times with maybe family members or people online. You present evidence and it just falls on deaf ears. Doesn't matter. They're not even trying to consider what you're saying. There's a reason for that. And it's because the answer, there are systems in place that keep them in that cult-like thinking. What am I talking about? I want you to think back when you were a kid, especially if you were a kid like me and you lived in the 1980s. Back then, before they really had laws against what kind of advertising could be targeted towards children and everything else, I mean, we got entire TV shows that were really just created to sell toys. That was it. He-Man, Thundercats, G.I. Joe, all that stuff we love. And the reason we love it, and we're still nostalgic for it, is when we were kids, when our little brains were forming, we got hit with that dopamine. We got hit with that advertising, which companies spent billions of dollars over the course of decades with market analysis, child psychologists, focus groups, you name it, all to sell more toys. It's the same with any product that's sold in America. And once you realize that MAGA and Trump, who's selling a product, which is really just bigotry, hatred, and preying on people's desperation and populism, you start to understand how this grift is so powerful. But part of this, other than just the marketing and the grift and knowing your audiences, you've got to keep them in this bubble. And that's why Fox News and OAN and the right-wing media sphere, which is propped up by foreign money and billionaires, is so dangerous. See, when I was a kid, I was a Christian, and I was raised in the church, Southern Baptist, but it was in Waimanalo, Hawaii. So it had a very different flavor from Southern Baptist church in the States. At my church, my pastor, who was a former Buddhist, focused on the parable of the Good Samaritan, helping your community. Basically, how you prophetized or you tried to convert people to Christianity was you lived a good life. You were a good example of Jesus's teachings. You followed what Jesus did in his ministry during his life. You went out, you tried to help the poor, you cared about people who were sick, you cared about your community. You lived by example. But if you look at any kind of mainline Christianity today in the United States, especially that's focused on Christian nationalism, it's exclusionary. They even say that you can't trust people outside of us. They're wicked. They're cruel. They'll try to deceive you. They'll try to corrupt you. And all of that is to try to keep people in that bubble. That way, the propaganda can take hold and have more of an impact. How do you do that? You keep them fearful and angry. Angry and afraid. That's it. Have you ever heard a MAGA speech that was hopeful? Have you ever heard a Republican nowadays that sounded hopeful? Or is it all just fear-based and anger? Is it all just everyone's trying to take something from them? There's never a duty to help. There's never something to aspire to a greater good, whether that's religion or whether that's country or community or whatever it is. It's all about cutting you off from other people who are potential support, whether that be people in your community who may be a little different from you, whether they're women, whether they're LGBTQ, whether they're people of color. Doesn't matter. That's how cults work. And this is very much cult-like. There's a reason that saying MAGA is a cult, why that happens is because it is in a lot of ways. And that's why Turning Points USA, although it's a joke that they're having their own halftime show, that's why they're doing it. Is because it keeps people in the cult. Because if you were to watch Bad Bunny, who's already performed at a halftime show, and he just wasn't the headliner, and no one had an issue with it, and you saw him perform, and you heard Spanish, you might think, that's not a big deal. Or if you heard him say something about Puerto Rico, or you saw a Puerto Rican flag, and you go, wow, that looks a lot like an American flag. Right. Because Puerto Ricans are part of America. They're Americans. You might start to realize that the United States is one of the largest Spanish-speaking countries in the world, in addition to English. And that Spanish, because of colonial powers, was here in America before English. That's why it's so frustrating talking to MAGA. And that's why you have to decide how much energy you really want to spend on it. Because they're in a cult. But here's where there is some hope. If you can pull them out of that bubble, if you can show them think that you don't have to just function in two modes, fear and anger, that there's higher things you can aspire to, which is what religion and country was supposed to be about, then maybe there's some hope. Maybe. Anyway, that's all I got for you. Keep the faith, defend democracy. And I'll see you later.